Today I'm going to show you how to make a futuristic eye in Photoshop. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And today's tutorial is really cool. It's a very stylized tutorial. We're adding a futuristic effect to an eyeball. This is the sort of thing you would see in like an Iron Man movie or anything having to do with the future, where apparently people just project numbers and letters and symbols out of their eyeballs. But you've probably seen this effect before. It's gonna be really fun to actually create it in Photoshop. I'm going to show you a great distortion technique called polar coordinates, which is going to wrap any shape you have into a circle. We're going to show you how to combine multiple different images together to create the effect, using different blending modes along the way. We're also going to show you how to make textures from scratch, as well as add color and layer effects to give it that special glow. I can't wait. Let's go ahead and get into the episode. Cool, so here's the image we're starting with. We've got a beautiful picture of an eye, and this is exactly what we want, a nice close-up picture that is in high resolution. Now, we're going to be creating some of our own textures to be putting on this eye, the futuristic elements. And before I do, I want to create another document that has about the same size as this document. So I'm going to go ahead and test the size of this document, or I'm not testing anything, I'm just going to look at it. So we're going to go to image and then down to image size. And you can see my width is 6,000 pixels and my height is like 4,900. So 5,000 is right around in between. We're going to make a 5,000 by 5,000 pixel square document. Okay, so let's hit cancel there. I'm going to hit Controller Command N for new. This is going to create a new document, and I'm just going to type in 5,000 by 5,000. Okay, we've got pixels, everything else looks good. Let's hit OK there. Now, it's very important at this step that you actually do make a square. So whatever size you're going to wind up putting this into, whether it's 2,000 by 2,000, whatever it is, make sure it's a square, because we're going to use some polar coordinates in just a little bit, and that really works best when you have a square document. All right, let's go ahead and look at what our polar coordinates actually do. Well, I'm going to create a new layer, and on this layer, we're just going to try creating a few different lines. In this case, I'm just going to grab my marquee tool. There we go. Make just a square there. I'm going to make another one over here. We'll make a nice thin one there. I'm holding down the Shift key, by the way, to add to these selections. There we go, and a really thin one there. So these are just selections at this point. We're going to go ahead and fill them with black. So I'm going to hit Shift Delete, which is going to bring up my fill dialog here, and we're going to choose black as our color, and we're on a new layer. Okay, now we're deselecting, and this is it. We've just got this on its own layer. Now I want to make this look like it's wrapping around her eye, so we need these lines. They can't just be straight lines. They need to kind of wrap around with each other, and that's where the polar coordinate comes in. So with the polar coordinates, what we're going to do, I'm going to go to Filter, we're going to go down to Distort and over to Polar Coordinates. There we go. Now if I zoom out, I'll be able to see a little preview of what I'm actually going to be making here in my final image. You have a couple different options. You have polar to rectangular, which is going to give you something like this, or rectangular to polar. In this case, we're going to be rectangular to polar. Now, the reason there's a little bit of a gap there is because my lines here don't extend all the way to the edge of my document. In this case, I'm actually okay with that gap. I think it'll be kind of interesting in the actual image. So we're going to hit OK. There we go. And now you can see that's what we get. So it just turns straight lines into concentric circles. And it'll do this with any pattern you have. So that's one version. Now, in this next version, what we're going to do, we're going to take those same straight lines we had earlier, and I'm just going to move them. There we go. We're just going to rotate them around 90 degrees, and we're going to try this again. So Filter, Distort, Polar Coordinates. All right, and there you can see we have a completely different effect. Let's hit OK and see what that does. We have a totally different effect, and this depends on whether your lines are vertical or horizontal. Very, very cool. So this is a great place to play around. All right, speaking of playing around, we're going to keep going with it, because this is going to wind up making the grid, or whatever thing is going to be wind up coming out of our eye. We're going to make a new layer here, and with this layer I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I don't use this tool nearly enough. We're going to fill this with nothing. There we go. And I want the stroke to be black, and we'll take the stroke up to like 10 pixels. So when I click and drag, it's going to make a rectangle. Close that out. or move it because it doesn't let me close it. When I click and drag, it's going to make a rectangle, each of which is going to be, have a 10 pixel black stroke around them. So I'm going to make a bunch of those because I think it'll look cool. I'm not sure, but I think it'll look cool. All right, there we go. Now we can see here on our layers, I've got a bunch of these rectangles, and I really don't need all those in separate layers. So I'm going to hold down Shift, click on all of those rectangles, and we're going to hit Control or Command E, which is going to merge them all together. Now we're going to just go ahead and rasterize that because it was a smart object. So now this is what we have on this layer. It's like, okay, cool. That's what that looks like. Well, let's go ahead and see what it looks like when we run it through our filter. So let's go to Filter. We're going to go to Distort, and we're going to go to Polar Coordinates. And there we go. That looks a lot cooler, right? It looks totally Star Wars. And notice how these are all going from the very same center point here. So if I wanted to size these things or change them around, which we're going to do in a second, you can see they all have the same center. All right, that looks cool, but you know what? I want another one. So we're going to create a new layer here. We're going to do this again. All right, this time we'll bring this stroke up. There we go, about 20 on a few of these. All right, same thing we did last time. Let's go ahead and shift-click all these, merge them together by hitting Command E, gonna rasterize them, and then we'll go to Filter, Distort, and Polar Coordinates. All right, zoom out, and we can see what that looks like. Very cool. Now, if I did want to rotate this around, I could definitely do that. Just click Command T and rotate this around. So we could put some of these on the top of the eye, some of them on the bottom of the eye. And we can see we're already getting a really cool pattern here. Up until this point, we've used a bunch of patterns and random shapes and applied those onto the filter. Now I'm going to show you guys how to actually add textures to this document and apply those with the distortion filter as well. So we've got a couple textures. I already chose them, and we're going to go ahead and bring these in. I've got like a sound wave type looking thing, and then we've got this other just absolutely crazy, I don't know what that is, but it looks cool. It's like sparkles and light. Well, let's go ahead and focus on this guy first. So if I click there, you can see I've got, it's in the same document as all these other layers. So this layer, and these are from Fotolia.com, by the way. I typed in like audio waves and sound waves and stuff like that, and that's where I got this stuff. So we're going to try Filter, Distort, down to Polar Coordinates. All right. Oh, you know what? I clicked on the wrong one. Filter, Distort, Polar Coordinates, and here we go. We can see what we're actually going to get. So let's hit OK. And we can see now we get something like that, which actually looks kind of cool. So that can be in our integration of, whatever we decide to do. That can join all of our other effects as well. All right, let's choose this layer here, and we're going to try the same thing. So Filter, we're going to go to Distort and to Polar Coordinates again. So we're basically been doing the same thing over and over again. And we have the Eye of Sauron now, which is actually pretty cool. So you can see anything that's linear, it's going to convert it into a radial image, just like this. So we've got a lot of pieces now. It's time to go ahead and transfer these onto the image of the eye to make the effect. To transfer these effects, I'm going to take my original document here, and I'm going to hold down Shift, click on all of those different layers, and we're going to hit Command or Control G, grouping them together, and we're just going to click on there and just call this Eye Effects. There we go. Now we're going to use our Move tool and click and drag from one document over to the other. Let's just lower the opacity of the whole group so I can figure about where the center is. There we go. And we're going to bring our opacity back up to 100. All right, so we have all the pieces in place. Now it's time to change some blending modes and get them to actually fit into the image and make it look like it's a futuristic eye effect. So we're going to start with layer 1 here. And right now it's black on a transparent background, and I want to make it white, which is really easy to do. I'm going to hit Control or Command I, which is going to inverse that, and now there we go. It's white now. Very cool. Let's go ahead and change our blending mode from normal down to soft light. That's just going to go ahead and allow that to kind of blend in the image. Now, keep in mind, whenever you're doing this sort of effect, there's a lot of different options here. For instance, if I decide to hit Control or Command J and duplicate this, I can now make this a little bit larger, and all of a sudden I've got a larger version, or I've got a really, really small version as well. So I don't have to recreate these effects every time I want to use them. I can just kind of stack them on top of each other. There we go. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. We're going to invert this as well. So Control or Command I to invert that. And let's put this as a soft light layer as well. And you know what? I think it looks pretty good. We're gonna expand it out a little bit bigger. So let's just hit Control or Command T, bring our little pivot point right up to the center of the eye, and then just drag that right out. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna hit Control or Command J. There we go, and let's rotate this around so now we've got another one up on the top. So you guys can see it's really easy to do. From here on out, we're pretty much playing around. That's what I get to do. I get to just play around in Photoshop. That's my job. It's pretty fun. There we go. That looks cool. Now, let's say I wanted this only to be visible towards the center of the eye. I don't want it to be visible at the outer edges. What we're going to do is I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and put a layer mask on this. So Alt or Option, click on the layer mask. That's going to make a black layer mask. Now I'm just going to paint white with my brush tool just right here, right around the center. And it's going to kind of allow it to kind of fade out. But I'm not going out to the edge, so we can see it's in the center there, but it's not going all the way out. And there are no rules when you're doing this, by the way. This is 100% just like I'm playing around, I'm having some fun, and I'm making some patterns and making a futuristic eye. So if you like what I'm doing, awesome. If you guys want to create your own versions, that's even better. All right, let's look at this layer now. This is cool. So this one, we're going to invert this as well. So I'm going to hit Control or Command I to make this white again. Now I'm going to zoom in here and we're actually going to apply a layer effect to this layer. Let's make the others invisible so we'll be able to see this a little bit better. Double click right here on your layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this an outer glow. So clicking right over here where we see outer glow, all right, we have a few different options. So make sure to turn that on. Blending mode is screen. We do want that. Now our opacity, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, and we're going to bring our size up as well, so you can actually see the glow around our objects. There's a preview for the before and after. And it looks okay with the yellow, but I want to change it to a blue. So I'm going to click there. We're going to go up to like a nice light colored blue, something like that. There we go. And we can just turn that off and on. All right, and hit OK. And there you can see it gives it a little bit more of the like futuristic glow. And you can turn this effect on or off if you want to at any point in time. We're going to do the same thing with this one actually. I'm going to hit Control or Command I on that. Now I'm going to copy the layer effect from this layer over to this one. To do so, it's really easy. Just hold Alt or Option and click and drag from one layer to another one right on the FX, and it's going to copy the layer effects from one layer to another one. There we go. Cool. So now we have on this layer, we have a copy of the layer effects as well. So if I just decided to duplicate this entire layer, maybe I just made this a little bit smaller and kind of rotated this around, there we go. Then we'd be able to fill in some more of our gaps. And we'll just kind of lower the opacity there. So you can see these layer effects, giving that little bit of glow really helps out to give it that like futuristic look. All right, let's see how that looks in combination with our other layers. So we're going to go ahead and turn these back on. Remember, we did those already. And that's already looking really, really cool. Let's turn this guy on and see what we can do here. Now, if I want only the darks to be visible in a layer, what I'm going to do is change the blend mode from normal down to multiply. And now we're going to see only the darks. But in this case, I want to only see the whites. So I want to invert my layer first. So I'm going to hit Control or Command I to invert it. And now, if I only want to see the lights, we're going to change this to a screen. So if you only want to see the darks, use multiply. If you only want to see the lights, use screen. There we go. And now set to screen. Now we have this like, you know, little like, I don't know, she's got a digital readout of the world on her pupil. I mean, I didn't write the science fiction movie that I'm making this up off of, but it looks really cool. All right, and then we got this guy as well. We're going to change this from normal down to screen also. And you can see by default, our color is a little bit, well, it's a yellow color, and if I want to change that, it's not a big deal. Just hit Control or Command U, and I can click and drag to change my hue to change it to like a really nice blue, something like a teal. That looks really nice, actually. Let's hit OK, and there we can see we've got a lot of added effects. I do have some layer masking I need to do around the edge because it's just too visible right here. I only want this to be visible towards the center. We had a couple of those areas around the edge. Awesome, so you can see I didn't really have to do anything for this effect. It already came in looking like that. All right, we're gonna do two more things. I'm gonna make the background here just a little bit darker where the eye is. All right, so I'm gonna create a curves adjustment layer. We're gonna click and drag that down. That's gonna go below everything else, okay? And now we're gonna hit Controller-Command-I on that layer mask and then paint white. And the reason I'm darkening down the eye underneath it is it's just gonna, see, it allows us to see that effect just a little bit more clearly. There we go, because we do have all these like lightning effects on there. All right, that looks great. And you can't make a futuristic eye in Photoshop without adding a little bit of the matrix lettering in the text that comes down. So we're gonna do that. I found this on Fotolia.com as well. This is like, you guys remember from the Matrix when I only see blonde, redhead. Anyway, this is the code, and we're gonna be putting this into our image as well. So I'm gonna hold Shift and click and drag from one image over to the other. Let's just bring this up into our eye effects group. Now again, I only want to see the lights. I don't want to see the darks. So we're going to use the blend mode screen. There we go, screen, and then now we're only seeing the lights. And if I want to change this color, because it is this green color, same thing I did with my other layer, we're gonna hit Controller-Command-U, and I can just simply move this until we see the right color. So you can see right about there, we're getting a nice blue. If I wanted it to be yellow or something like that, we could get that as well. But in this case, I'm gonna stick with that same blue color palette. All right, and then I just have to figure out where to put it. I'm gonna just kind of fade it in there. So let's put a layer mask on there. I'm gonna paint black, give it a nice soft edge so it kind of looks like it just fades in a little bit over the eye. There we go. And we've got some futuristic matrix-like text in our image. That looks awesome. And the very last thing we're gonna do is add a little bit more color on top of everything to give it that glow. So on top of everything in our layers group, we're gonna add an adjustment layer. I'm gonna go down to curves, and now we're just gonna click here on our green channel, and I'm gonna click and drag that up a little bit. We're gonna go into our blue channel, we're gonna click and drag that up a little bit as well. So that's gonna put green and blue into my image. There we go. And now I can hit Controller-Command-I on that layer mask to invert it, and then I can just paint in this green and blue wherever I'd like to create kind of like a nice glow. There we go. Let's put a little more blue in there. Click and drag that up. There we go. All right, so let's check on that before and the after with that glow. Lower the opacity a little bit. There we go. And now you are looking into the eye of the future. Let's go ahead and take a look at the before and the after. Here's our eye, totally normal, straight out of camera. And here we are afterwards, straight from the future. And that's how we create a futuristic eye in Photoshop. Now, keep in mind, all these things I'm adding, the textures and the colors, these are just choices that I made. There's no right or wrong here. So get in there and make sure you're really playing around. You can make a futuristic nose or ear or whatever you really want. So if you remember, we started off making a 5,000 by 5,000 square image. Now, being square is really important because using the polar coordinates, it makes sure we get a perfect circle in the end. Then we jumped in and made a variety of shapes and used the polar coordinates to make them look like they're wrapping around the center of the image. Next, we showed you how to actually bring images into that same document and apply the polar coordinates to make them look like they're in a sphere as well. Then we brought all those layers into the image with the eye. We added a layer effects to add a blue outer glow, did some color correction, and that's it. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. I had a ton of fun making it. I hope you had a lot of fun watching it. And if you like what we're doing here at Phlearn and you want to learn more free Photoshop and photography, just click on the subscribe button on your screen now. It's really easy. Just take your mouse and just go click. And we'll send you free Photoshop and photography episodes every single week. And if you have an idea for a new episode or a question or comment about today's episode, just leave it in a comment right down below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Phlearn you later. Bye-bye. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make a futuristic eye in Photoshop. Ha! What does that even mean? So I've got a couple textures chosen already. All right, so I've got a couple chosen. So we've got all right, so now we've got a couple textures. Nope, the important things are to remember look like they're actually choosing a 5/4. How large was that actually? Being a square is really important because it's gonna help your Being a square is really important because it's going to help your making the images square. I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching it. Yeah. And if you like what we're doing here at Phlearn, be sure, I just said that. I'm getting rusty. Yeah. I'm a professional.